Good evening, everyone, and welcome to day 3 of our Salesforce platform developer. And tonight, we're going to continue with the basics of Apex. So I'm going to continue from where I stopped. Again, to get into your hub, your developer console, you go to the setup and you click on developer console, okay? And you can copy this instead of having to work from two screens. You can just work from one screen, okay? So now we have this, and we stopped here yesterday. So let's continue from where we stopped. So far, we know how to use list, how to use set, how to use map. We also know how to use the primitive data type, which is the integer, the string, the long, the double, and the likes, okay? So the idea for all this is for you to know if you have a data that is coming in, what type of data type, what data type should you use to store that information? That's the whole idea of all this. Because you haven't started programming, you've only learned how to store data. And that's the beginning of programming. So now you've seen all this, okay? But in actual fact, when you are calling list and you're declaring list of string like this, new list of string. When you're doing this, you're calling what they call a class, and the class is a list class, but it's so high level that you don't need to create that list class yourself. You just use it. Okay, so because you see this stuff, it means that it's an inbuilt function that you're calling. But if you're not calling this inbuilt function, you can be creating your own function and your own class. That is what we've done here. We've created our own class. Instead of using the list class, using the string inbuilt function, we've created our own, and we can instantiate this class. The same way I showed you, you can instantiate this class, and you can also use methods. Methods are inside the class. So when you see list, and you can do something like this, dot add one, it means that add is a method inside this list class. So if I have any instance of a list, I can call this method, which is add, because it is an instance of a list. Similarly, if you have something like this, new, as you can see, you have an instance of a sample object, and you can call calculate area from the instance of a sample object. That's it. Do you know why you can use this? Because it is inside a sample object, and you can call the method that is present inside a sample object. You don't get to see all this because they are inbuilt with the programming language. But Salesforce gives us a liberty to create our own class as well as our own method. Yesterday, I also showed you the difference between private and public. When you declare a method as public, it means you can use that method anywhere outside of this class. You can call it. If it is private, then you cannot call it, okay? So you should understand why you need to declare public or private. If you just want to return something very sensitive, or the method would be calculating something sensitive, then you don't need to declare it as a public. You don't want other people to have access to it, okay? Now, we've seen the basic class, but things can get complex. Let's say you want to write a simple class, okay, called, don't let us use void. Just say, I want to calculate, okay, yeah, void is also an example of, so when you use static, you can also use what they call void. Void meaning that it doesn't return anything. As you can see, right now, you're expecting it to return something which is an integer, okay? But if you don't want anything to be returned, then you probably don't need to use any return statement, okay? You don't have to use it. If you don't want anything to be returned, you can just use void and the name of the method, okay? If you don't want any inputs, just put it like this, and you do something inside the method. Now you might be wondering, what kind of method would you write that wouldn't really need to return anything? Why should you not return anything? I've written a method. Obviously, method should do something, but why would you want to use this? You can use this if you want to change, if you want to manipulate things without actually returning a particular value based on the manipulation. Let me explain to you. Let's say you want to calculate tasks based on a salary, but you don't want to always call the, you don't want to always, you want to manipulate the value of a tax based on the salary information, okay? So you don't have to declare, or you don't have to return, because once you return, that's the end of the statement. Once you return something like this, you cannot go to this line. If you try to say string x equals 7, it's going to tell you that you have already returned something here. How would you be able to get to this line? It's going to ask you, you cannot get to this line because you have already returned. Return means that I am going back to where this stuff was called from, calculate area. I'm going back to it. So you saying string x is equal to 7 in the next line is going to tell you illegal assignment from integer to string. Okay, that's number one error. We cannot use string and integer. That's number one. Number two, it says unreachable statements, meaning that we have already returned the value of A times B. Then we cannot get here anymore. You cannot do anything here. So this will not be read. However, if you put it at the top, you will see that it wouldn't give you error because it will process this line. But if you put it after the return statement, it will not process the line. Okay, so now that's a very good use case of void. So let me give you an example of a void. Let's say I want to calculate tax. I'll just say public void tax. Okay, then I'll say deduction equals salary times 0.13. So that means I have to pass salary, right? So I have passed salary into the function, and I'm saying deduction equals this. So for me to use deduction, I must have done what? Declare deduction. Okay? Deduction. So what am I doing here? The first thing I did was I declare deduction to be 0. Then I come in here, I manipulated the value of deduction. I call the new value of deduction to be salary times 0.13. So deduction is now going from 0 to deduction equals salary times 0.13. Then I will create a new method called public double calculate salary, meaning that I want to calculate the salary of an employee, right? What do I need to pass into to calculate salary of an employee? Maybe the final salary of an employee, salary, and maybe the number of now just say maybe rates. What do I need to calculate salary? Number of hours times rate, right? Okay. Then I'll say integer hours, right? So integer hours, then rate. Okay. So to calculate salary, I need to deduct, okay, deduction, which is this. Deduction times rate, okay, times hours. So this is how to calculate salary. However, if I use deduction like this, it's going to tell me deduction is 0. Okay? It's going to tell me deduction is 0. Okay? However, if I call tax, okay, I call tax and I'm passing in rates on the task. That means I have manipulated the value of deduction. I have manipulated the value of deduction. Before now, deduction equals 0. Okay? Deduction is 0 when it comes to this line. However, when I call tax rates, the system goes to the method called tax, and it's going to pass in salary. Okay, I just put a salary, but I can call it rate or something like that. Okay, doesn't matter, I can call it rate. Okay, it's going to pass in the value of rates and multiply it by 0.13. So deduction will now change. Okay, so deduction is greater than 0 year. Okay. Deduction is equal to 0 when it's year. But once I call this function, which is this, deduction will be greater than 0. Okay. Then I return deduction times rates times hours. This is how to use a void. A void will just be used to manipulate something. You don't expect it to return anything. It's just going to manipulate the value of deduction. Okay? It is a way to manipulate a value to continue an operation. Okay? So if we have to run this, all I need to do is call this method and instantiate this method. I'll just call it sample object, new sample object. Okay. So I have an instance of new sample objects, so dot calculate salary. What do I need to pass? A double and an integer, right? And an integer. Okay. I can actually call this integer. Okay. So I pass in 2 integer, which is 2, and let's say 4. okay? And it's going to calculate, it's going to return deduction rates and hours, okay? Then salary equals, because it's going to return double, it's going to return double. Calculate salary will return double, okay? Double salary equals this. Then system.debug salary, okay? Salary, or you can just make it calculated salary, okay? Calculated salary equals this, okay? So let's try to run this and see what we get. Can you see? Calculated salary is 2.08. Okay, but obviously that's too low. What you just need to do is increase this one to 200 something, right? Then you can see much stuff. What I want to do here is system.debug. Okay, I want to find out the value of deduction. Okay, just for you to see what is happening. Then the value of deduction here. So you can see the difference between deduction here and deduction here, okay? This is after we call a void function method, okay? Then I call this and I debug. It is 0, it is 26, and salary is this. This is how to write methods. You've seen it in JavaScript. It is called function. It's just the same way in Apex. You are just declaring a method name, what it is going to return, the input of that method, whether it is public or private. If I make it private, I cannot use it. I cannot use it anywhere outside of this class. Okay? This is what programming is all about. Now, there is something I want to teach you again. I want you guys to look at this carefully, okay? When you are working, you need to understand what they call scope. Scope is whether to find out if, okay? You want to find out if you can access your variable. Look at, I put double here. Then when I got into this method, I do not need to put double in front of deduction. Do you know why? Because I have already declared double here. And the system, I have already, I'm just trying to close it so we don't have lag in our screen. Look at, you can also move this somewhere, I think. Okay, so we have this. Deduction was established. When I get in here, I said double deduction. What this is saying is that this deduction is different from this deduction. Okay, this deduction is different from this deduction. However, if I do not put double here, this deduction is equal to this deduction. That's what they call scope. You are working within a block. This is a code block. The start here and the finish here is a code block. So if you say name string name equals Ade here, and you come here and say name equals Samuel, the name you've written here that is Ade has changed to Samuel. However, if you say string name equals Samuel, the name here is no longer the name here. This is a different name. This is a scope. Okay, so you need to understand that whenever you're declaring a variable, you need to understand where in the scope are you declaring that variable. So if you want to use deduction and you declare the deduction here, and you now put another string or whatever deduction is it, double deduction, then you have changed the value of deduction. However, this deduction is within the scope. Okay, it is within the scope. So if you're programming, you need to know where to define your variables. If you know that a variable will not be changed throughout the entire programming, you can put what they call a final in front of that variable. So you can say public final. Then throughout the entire programming, we know that public final name string is Ade would always be Ade throughout the programming. This is ideal for maybe you want to put discount and you don't want a discount to change. Then you can declare a constant. Okay, so always know where to put your block of codes before you start working. If you have, let's say, you have string name Samuel here, and you put a condition, let's just say if x equals 3, right? If x equals 3. If x equals 3, string name equals Ade or Philip. Okay? It's going to tell you something. First of all, you need to declare x, string integer x, okay? Integer x. And it's going to tell you duplicate variable name. It's telling you it's a duplicate variable name because you have name here, which is within the same scope. This is a scope, this is a block of code, right? Anytime you start with a public and you end up public, it is a block of code. So you cannot declare the same name twice within a block of code. So if you already declare string name here, all you need to do is take away this string off and you have manipulated the value of name. So the name will change from Samuel to Philip, but you cannot declare it again. It's gone. You already declared within that scope. Okay, so you should know where to put your declaration. Is this declaration, is this variable used anywhere outside of this scope? If yes, then it is better to put it outside. If it is only applicable to this method, then just put it inside this method. If it's applicable to this method, this method, this method, then just declare it at the top. So you know that anywhere in your method, you can use it. Okay? So you need to understand variable, scope, and how to assess your variable within a scope. Okay? It's just best practice to know where to put your variables so you can always use it anytime you need it. Okay, so now let's kind of like let's go into what we need to learn in terms of control statements. You've seen a lot of activities. Let me open a new file. Okay, you've seen a lot of interesting activities, right? And you've seen how to manipulate variables. But there is more to programming than just manipulating variables. We have what they call the control statements. What are control statements? Control statements are statements you use to check a particular record and manipulate those records based on a presence of a condition. Okay? A presence of a condition, meaning that you're specifying a conditional statement that is being evaluated. And when the condition is met, an action takes place. Okay? What are the types of control statements? We have the if statement that checks if a condition is true. When the condition is true, it does what the code says it should do. Okay? So a typical example would be if if account name equals Blackforce, do something. Can you see? It's a very simple statement. If the account name equals Blackforce, which is a string, do something. That's all. That's the if statement. The if statement is checking whether account name is Blackforce. And if account name is Blackforce, it's going to do something for the account that belongs to Blackforce. So how would you, in terms of programming, how would you put this? Let's say you've been asked to query all account records. Check. Look for a condition, a clause that is Blackforce, or look for a condition that is paid, okay, which is a checkbox. Then you can say if is paid, which is a boolean, okay? If the account is paid, send a welcome email or whatever email you want to send. That's a use case of a very simple case study of querying and finding out its paid value. Then you send a welcome email. But there's more to the if statement. However, you don't use the if statement to do a very lengthy operation. You only want to use it to check something. If a Boolean condition, if it is true, do something. That's all you want to do with an if statement. For instance, you can say is paid equals true. For obviously, if you say if is paid equals true, then you say if is paid system.debug client as paid. So what you're saying is if is paid, that means if you don't put is true there, you just say if it's paid, client as paid. So anytime you want to declare a variable, I've said this several times, you have to put the data type of the variable. Boolean is paid true. If is paid, print client as paid. In the system, we're going to have client as paid. Do you know why? Because is paid is true. Now, if is paid, if you put this sign, it means negative of the value of is paid. It means the opposite of the value of is paid. So right now, is paid is true. But if this sign, exclamation sign, is paid, it means if it's not paid. Okay, so you don't need to explicitly say that you don't need to explicitly say that it is not paid, right? You just use that exclamation mark and nothing will be printed on the screen. Do you know why? Because it's paid is true. And you're saying if it's not paid, print this. Okay? That is a very good example of the if statement, which is one of the control statements. Very easy to use. What do you need to do? Check the condition for the if statement, wrap it around a curly bracket, and do something. So I've already shown you how to print a system.debug. What if you have account name or discount? Discount equals discount rates equals 0.13. Okay? Then you will check for an account and see annual revenue. Okay? $120,000. Okay? I will put that as an integer. Or you can use decimal, double, or the likes, okay? Then you can say if annual revenue is greater than 1,000, print high value customer. Okay? Then give a discount of 0.13. Okay? So you can use whatever costs. You can just say double cost equals purchase price times discount. Okay? Discount rate. But obviously you need to declare purchase price, okay? Because purchase price is only needed within this function, I can just put it here, right? But be very mindful of what you are collecting, the data type you're using. Okay, be very mindful of that because that will determine the kind of stuff that would appear in your results, okay? So we have this. Discount, okay, it's not wrapped in a class, so you have to put everything in there. Okay. If it was wrapped in a method, then it's much easier to call. Okay. Let me just copy it here and just use it within a method. Okay, it's much easier when you put it within a method. Okay, because you can now use all those variables. Otherwise, you can just start declaring it and it doesn't really, you know. I'm making it clear for you guys because I want you guys to master it. Okay, so if we have a simple method out here that returns what should it return? It should return a double because the final thing we want to return is cost. Okay, we're returning cost. Okay, and we say double calculate cost, then put everything around that method. Okay, so we have this. And let's see the error. Variable does not exist, annual revenue. declare annual revenue at the top. So we can see the variable. See the line of code, variable does not exist, discount rate, declare discount rate at the top. So we can use discount rate. And discount rate is also a double. What else? Missing return statement type double. It says is expecting a return statement of type double, which is this. Okay. And I can just declare cost maybe outside, or I can put it here, it doesn't matter. Okay. Cost. Okay. Then missing return type double, public, double, calculate cost, return cost is okay. So yeah. So the problem here is this. I hope you guys are still with me. What we've done here is we have annual revenue, we have discounts, and we use an if statement to check if annual revenue is 1,000. Then Boolean is paid true, which obviously we did not use, but the idea is to calculate cost and return cost. Here we know definitely that cost is double. However, it's going to return cost if annual revenue is 1,000. What happens if annual revenue is not 1,000? It will return nothing because there is nothing here to return. So the system is telling me that missing return statement. That means the system has automatically, within the power of computing, has automatically figured out that annual revenue is this, or it's what if annual revenue is not greater than 1,000. So what you need to do, instead of using a return here, you can put your return outside of your if statement. So this would always return something. Okay, it will always return something. If you put it here, it will only return if annual revenue is greater than 1,000. But if you put it here, it is going to return this if annual revenue is greater than 1,000, or return null. Okay, so let's save this and just call this method and test. Okay, then we have dot calculate cost. And I don't need to pass in anything, okay? The cost equals, because I'm expecting double, I save it as double. Then system dot debug. Okay. The cost is this. High value customer, the cost is this. What have we done? I go to the cost is null here. Annual revenue is this. Discount rate is this. Boolean is paid is true, which is just a case of us just, this stuff is not needed. Okay, we've already explained that one. So we have integer, purchase price is this, cost is purchase price, then discount rate. So I'm checking if the annual revenue is greater than 1,000. It's going to say cost is this. However, if the annual revenue is not, let's say we use a very large number, meaning that it will never execute this code, okay? Then let's test. It tells you null, meaning that it's only returning the value of cost which we declare at the start of the operation, which is this, okay? Instead of running this code, it ignores this code. That is the purpose of the if statement. The if statement will check if a condition is true. If the condition is true, it's going to go inside that block and do some manipulation. If the condition is not true, it ignores this block entirely. It's like, okay, this stuff does not exist in my memory, and it's going to go to the next line. So when you're working on programming, everything is done line by line basis. When you declare something, it goes into the memory of the computer. When you declare something, it goes into the memory and it's being evaluated. Then you get a return. This is the if statement. Now, control statement is more than the if statement. The next control statement is the if else. The if else statement is similar to the if statement. However, you are giving it a condition if the condition you stated does not match. What do I mean? If you have, if is paid, do this. System.debug client as paid. You see, you've done something if it's paid, which is fine. But what happens if it's not paid? If it's not paid, you can say something about that situation. Right now, the situation is paid and everything is good. If it's not paid, just say something that the client has not paid. Okay? Client has not paid. Then always remember to terminate, okay? It's going to say client has paid. Why? Because it's paid is true. If it's paid is false, it's going to tell you client has not paid because of the else statement. Previously, we had a blank screen. Okay? We had a blank screen because there was no else statement. However, if you put the else statement, you will get client has not paid. It's very simple if else statement. Okay? This is another form of control. So what typically you will get on the job is they will tell you to check if a condition is true, or you want to check if something is greater than something, or you want to do other things, you want to check something. Then based on your check, you want to do something. But remember, everything must be within these curly brackets. Don't manipulate things that does not meet the condition outside of the curly brackets. Okay? So that is if-else statement. So if you have multiple conditions, such as you know that an account can either be, or a plan can either be basic, standard, or professional. And you want the cost to be 0, 250, or 2,500. Then, what do you need to do? The first thing is you need to declare plan. This is what we did at Black Force. It's just you knowing how to bring too many logics together to form a website or whatever you want to form. This is what we did at Black Force. String, then double or integer or whatever you want to call it, double cost. We've declared these two variables. Then we are going to write a statement. Okay? If plan equals basic, do something. Else, if plan equals standard, do something. Else, if. So what can you see here? We have introduced another control statement, which is the else if. So you've seen the if, you've seen the else that automatically ends the control flow. And you've seen else if, else if. If, else, if, meaning that if plan is professional, do this. Finally, else, system dot debug, we cannot find your plan. Okay, so if it is professional, cost equals 2,500. If it is standard, cost equals 250. And if it is basic, cost equals 0. Okay? Then you can print cost if you want to. So you can see basic plan plus cost. Standard plan cost. Professional plan cost. Now, for you to use this, you need to declare what the plan is, okay? Plan is, let's start with basic. So now I have declared the plan to be basic. Okay, so plan was initially initialized, double was initialized. Now I set plan to be basic. Then I start my control statement. If plan equals basic, cost is 0, print this. Else if plan equals standard, cost is this, print this. Else if professional, cost is this, print this, okay? So plan is 0. One thing you will notice is this. When I said equal, I did not just use equal. I used double equal. This is how to do expression in Apex. Apex expression. So whenever I give you tips and you see me go to Google, make sure you are reading more than what I am saying. This is how to do expression in Salesforce. Everything I'm going to teach you in Platform Developer is here. You can never miss it. So if I were you, I will read everything here, everything from A to Z. That is Platform Developer. Salesforce will not give you anything outside of this. The only thing that will be left is your brain to think and to look for answers in this developer's guide. Everything about Salesforce developer is here. How to write Apex, how to run Apex, how to debug and test. Okay, so now I use an expression which is equal sign. Okay, it says unlike Java, blah, blah, blah. What you just want to learn is that string comparison using this is case sensitive, case insensitive. ID comparison is case sensitive. Okay, and you need to understand what that means. That means case insensitive, meaning that you can say basic and it's still basic, right? Or you can say standard and it's still standard. Okay, so it ignores that case. Then going further, if you want to exact equality, meaning that I want it to be exact in terms of structure, in terms of instance type, then you use this. If I want to be greater than, I want it to be less than, all these stuffs are very basic, okay? One of the most important you want to check is this one. This one means or, and this one means and. This one means not equal. There is one that is not equal. Let me show you not equal. Not equal is this, okay? Okay, so always look into the expression you want to use. Let's quickly see an example of not equal. But before we get there, let's change this one to standard. Standard, sorry, plan is standard. So the next one, the cost will be 250, right? Cost will be 250 because plan is now standard, okay? 250. Then if you change it to professional, it will be 2,500, okay? Now, I want to show you the negative of this. So I'm just gonna imagine we have just this, okay? Using the if else, I'll just say plan is not basic, okay? Plan is not basic, okay? So now, if plan is basic, do this. If plan is not basic, do this. That's the else statement. But if I flip this, I'm saying if plan is not basic, cost is 250 or 2,500 or whatever it is. Okay? This statement means that the plan is not, you're checking is not. Okay? So you're not checking equals to anymore. You're checking the negative of equals to. Okay? If you select this, you will see plan is 2,500 because you have negated this expression. Okay, that is how to use the not. But you could say we have to charge string, or you can say charge, you can say boolean charge payments required equals true. Payment is required if plan is not basic. Okay? So the default is false. If plan equals basic, Payment required is false. I'm not doing anything. If plan is not basic, payment is required. Then I have to manipulate payment inside this else. Okay? So what is the use case of the or sign? The use case of the or sign is you're checking two things together. You're checking if plan is standard or plan is professional. Okay? So I'm saying if plan is not standard or plan is not professional, then payment required is false. Do not manipulate payment required. Else, payment is required. That means plan is standard professional, right? Payment required is false. But obviously, it should be payment required true, right? So what is plan? Plan is professional. So the system will come here. It's going to say, if plan not standard, is plan standard? No, plan is professional. Plan is not standard. Plan is not professional. Okay? It's not professional, but plan is professional. So this is going to go through. So if you want to manipulate two things, you want to check two things, you will use or. Or is to check this or this, meaning that it is going to check the first one first before going to the second one. However, it is going to stop if this condition is met. It's not even going to bother about this condition. Okay? So let's make sense out of it. If plan equals standard or professional, right? Payment is required. Okay? We know that payment is required, so payment is true. Okay? Let's run it. And we know payment is true, okay? Because the plan is professional. Now, this or sign is checking if plan is standard or plan is professional. Meaning that if the plan is standard, it's just going to stop. It's not even going to bother to check this one because it has found what it is looking for and it stops. However, if this does not meet the condition, it's going to go to the next one and find out. That is the use case of or. Or is checking for this or that. There is what they call the and. And is different from or. Reason why and is different from or is because this must be true and this must also be true in order for it to each bit must be true. Okay? That's how you use the and operator. And logic operator, if X a Boolean and Y a Boolean are both true, then expression evaluates to true. Otherwise, expression is false. You need to know the use case of and. What is a very good use case of and? If a plan is professional and is paid equals true. And is paid. You see how you're writing program now. This is a use case at Black Force. I'll just tell my tech guys, I want you to send an email or I want to activate if it is professional and it's paid. If it is standard and it's paid, it's true. Okay? It's going to tell you payment required false. Why is payment required false? If plan is standard and is paid, it should be true, right? If plan is not standard and is paid, doesn't matter. The plan needs to be standard and is paid needs to be true for this system to process this statement. Otherwise, it is going to process this statement, okay? So if you run this again, it's going to be false, right? But that doesn't make sense. The default is already false. Okay? If you check it, it's going to tell you true. Why? Because the plan is standard and is paid is true. But if you want it to be, is not paid, then you can say payment is required, right? If it's not paid, payment is required, okay? The whole idea is for you to know how to use the if else and how to use the operator or and operator, okay? So you've seen how to manipulate things. It will come very handy when you start working. You've seen the if else. There is more to if else, okay? You can keep checking, but at the end of it all, which I probably did not demonstrate, at the end of it all, you need to put else. The else will now give what you want if all these conditions are not met. If plan is basic, do this. If plan is standard, do this. If plan is professional, do this. Else, we cannot find your plan, okay? So you need to know how to use the if-else statement. It's going to help you to do the things which you want to do with your code. You see, you've learned how to store value. You're now learning how to manipulate value. I store the value initially as nothing. You can call it 0 here if you want, doesn't matter. Then I manipulate the value of cost once a condition is met. This is a control statement. There is another control statement, which is the for loop. The for loop, as you've seen in JavaScript, is just to look through a statement or look through series of data and find out instance whereby a condition is met. So the syntax for the for loop is the initialization, okay? Initialize. Then when should the for loop stop? Exit. Then how should the for loop increase in step? Okay, the step size. Then you put your for loop. So what does this translate into? It translates into for loop, which is initial, exit, step. Initialize, the exit condition, and the step. So what does this mean? It means if I want to look through a code, let's declare integer. Okay? A list of integer. How do we declare a list of integer? From yesterday, we have a list of integer equals new list integer. Okay? So we've declared a list of integer. Let's add some items into that list. Let's add some items. Actually, let's declare a list of string. Okay, let's declare a list of string. Doesn't matter what you declare anyway. I want to add basic standard then I want to add professional. Okay, so I've added this into list of integer. If I determine I want to check my list of integer, it's going to give me basic, standard, professional. Okay. Now I want to loop through the list of integer using the for loop. I would say for, okay, the for. What is the initial? The initial would be, if you want to use the list, we can just say for string plan inside the list of string, just to make it more descriptive, right? So we know exactly what we're doing. List of string, okay? For plans, which is basic, standard, professional, in a list of string, I want to print the value of plan. System.debug, the plan is plan. Meaning that I am looping through the list of string and I'm storing it as plan and I'm displaying the plan. Okay? If I loop through this, this is the one way to loop through a list, okay? I'll show you the other way to loop through a list shortly. You have this, and it says the plan is basic, the plan is standard, the plan is professional. What does that tell you? It tells me that looping through a list and printing the statement will show me all the values in that list. Okay? It's going to show me all the value in that list. And if you want to use this approach, you can also use this approach. I'll bring it out here. What is the initial value? I can just say initial value is 0. That is the starting point. Where do I start from? I'm starting my loop from point 0. Then what is the next thing? The next thing, initial exit. When should I stop? When should I stop? I want to stop after I have checked all the size of this list. Yesterday, you learned about size. Okay? You learned about size. So I want to stop when I is less than the size. Okay? Then when or how often should I increase this? I want to increase it one step at a time. Okay? So what should I do when I'm looping through the list of string? Okay, I'm looping through the list of string. And what should I do? I might probably just want to print the value at each index, meaning that string 0, string 1, string 2, and the likes, okay? So let's see how this would look like. Anytime you hear this does not exist, just know that you haven't declared it, okay? You need to declare it. Can you see? It is the same looping. The first one gave us basic, standard, professional. The second one gave us basic, standard, professional. So what does that tell you? It tells me that anytime I want to loop, I can either loop like this or loop like this. It is for loop. This is what you will be using most of the time because it is much intuitive than this, right? The reason being that this does not carry the list, okay? This is where you get to execute the list. But for this, you can see that you're looping through the list and you're saving the value as planned. Then you are putting plan. Okay, I hope this is making sense. If it's not making sense, please take your time to understand what we've done. First, we declare a list. Second, we put some value into the list. That means the list now contains some value. Third, we print the list, obviously system.debug, just to check what the value of the list is. Fourth, you loop through the list. You loop through the list, which is the list. Then you say string plan, meaning that one element inside this list, I'm trying to get one element, which I called plan. One element, which is a string, and I call it plan. Inside this list, print it out for me. But I want to print all the elements in the list inside the for loop. You can also do the for loop by using the integer, the JavaScript style. Initialize, where do you want to start from? Then, what is the size of the loop? How often, how long do you want to do it for? Then, what is the step size? Is it going to increase by 1, by 2? This is where you declare it, okay? Then you print out the plan. This is the for loop, okay? This is the for loop. There is also another, before we go to another for loop, what is the benefit of this? Why do people do this? Why are you even trying to do this? You're trying to do this, maybe you want to do something. You have a list of customers, okay? And there is a variable, a field in the list of customer called customer plan, okay? It could be customer plan, it could be plan, it could be anything, okay? So now, you want to do what? You want to check if the customer plan equals basic. Then, what do you want to do? This customer plan is basic, right? Then you want to say payments required equals 0. But if it is standard, it is 250. This is how you put a condition to determine what this customer would pay based on their plan. Okay, so I need to have declared payment required here to 0. Okay. So can you see how we have integrated the for loop and the if? We put it inside each other. The for loop stands by itself, but inside that for loop, I want to check the plan. Then I put if plan equals standard, then payment required is 250. This is programming, how to move things together, how to manipulate things. The customer plan is standard. If you list the payment plan, you will see the payment required will be 250. You have integrated the for loop with an if statement. So two control statements inside one operation. Programming is no more than this. This is what some people get $150,000 for every year. This is programming. The only difference is you will now have a case study, a project that would question your task, that will tax your brain. You now start thinking, where should I put the if statement? Should I put it here, or I should put it before the for loop? Should I declare it as a variable, as a string, or as a double? That is your own critical thinking. But in terms of the programming itself, all you need to know is how to write the syntax. If you can write the syntax, you can program. JavaScript, Apex, no difference, just the syntax. As you can see, Apex is much readable, right? Apex is much readable compared to JavaScript, but people prefer different languages based on what they like to write. Okay, let's go to another control statement. And the control statement is called switch. The switch and case, okay? The switch is very simple. Why is it very simple? It's simple because all it's just looking for is if a condition is met, then it's just going to switch to that condition. So let me give you an example. I have integer I, or cost equals, okay, I have cost equals to cost equals nothing. Then I have a switch statement on cost. Okay, I have a switch statement on cost, and I'm saying on that switch statement, I want to manipulate the value of cost. So when cost is greater than 0, no, it's equal, it's greater than, you can say greater than, you can do whatever it is, but the switch needs to be expression. It's going to be expressing cost, okay? Because cost is an integer. And you can say when cost is greater than 0, you want to do something. When cost is greater than 250, do something. When cost is greater than 1,000, do something. That is switch for you. Switch will just go to where that condition is met, and it's going to do something within that block. It's looking for when the condition is met, and it's going to do something. Okay, so right now, integer cost equals 0. No, let's say cost is 100. Obviously, because if it is not, okay, let's try this first. When it is 0, but we need to put a final statement here, otherwise it will not do any expression. So when else, meaning that if it doesn't match any of this, then it's going to do something. So now let's kind of like populate our do something, okay? I'll just say cost is greater than 0. Okay? Cost is greater than 250. Cost is greater than 1,000. And here I'll just say cost is 0. Because it's greater than 0, it's not there. Greater than 250 is not there, then it is 0. So let's see what happened. Okay, so basically it's just telling us that we cannot do the expression like this. We have to literally find the value of the cost. Okay, so let's start with a string. String might be better. Let's see a string for now. Let's say winter, because it wants to express. It doesn't want to think. The computer does not want to think. It wants to express it immediately. Okay, doesn't want to think. So season is winter. When winter, when summer, when fall, else. Okay, so it doesn't want to think. It just wants to look at, okay, what is season? Season is winter. Where is when winter? It's looking for where is when winter. Then express winter. Okay, so you don't need to do any expression yet. Okay, and all this obviously we understand where it falls. Switch is an inbuilt statement. Okay, always assign the right value, the right data type. Okay, variable winter does not exist. Just 1 minute. Variable does not exist winter. If you assign string sing assign this season to string season, switch on winter, when winter, or give me 1 minute. I'm just thinking why it's telling me it doesn't exist. It's supposed to exist. Switch on season, winter. This is a case of this, case of that, case of that. Two. On line 44. Okay. What if we put it here, because we don't, oh yeah, we can put it here, or we can just wrap it up around this. Okay, remember, whatever I've taught you, you have to use it, otherwise you will be trying to figure out why it's not working. Because winter is not really, it's not really apex, right? It has to be something. So it's asking you, or it's telling you that, oh, I don't know what winter is. Why are you using it? Okay, that's what it's telling you. Okay, it said cost greater than 0, but obviously we need to say season is winter. Okay, and we need to say season is summer. Okay, And here we say season is fall. And here we say we cannot find that season. Okay. And it's going to tell you season is winter. Why? Because the season is winter. So let's change it to something that does not exist in the system. Switch on season. When is winter? Season is winter. When is summer? Season is summer. When is fall? Season is fall. When else? We cannot find that season, okay? And you will see that it says we cannot find the season, okay? That's how to use the switch. So we've seen a very simple case of the switch, right? So you want to use switch if you know the right string you're looking for, the right expression you want to match. Remember, this expression must match one of these. Otherwise, it's going to fall into the else. Okay, this is how to use switch. It's one of the examples, like the control statements. So we have other control flows, but these are the most common ones. There is also the do while, and there is while. You can use this to look for an instance, or you can loop through an expression until you are done with the size of the loop you are trying to do. So what will be a very good use case of this? I want to check through the entire record, and I want to stop when I have checked the 10th element and I still cannot find my answer. So this is an example. Do while. Okay, count is less than 11. So I'm going to be counting, okay? I want to be counting every time the expression takes place. I want to be counting, okay? Do keep looping, keep looping, keep looping, keep looping until the value of count is less than 11. And if you run this, count does not exist. Declare count. Integer count equals 0. So I can even debug count. So you can see it in the control, in the system debug. So what this means is it's going to keep counting 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And it's going to stop because you say less than 11. It's going to keep counting until count is less than 11, and it's going to stop. Okay? So the use case of this is if you're looping through an account and you don't want to exhaust the system, you can just keep checking, and you cannot put an if statement here. And you can put some expression, do something. Remember, you have to do something once the if statement is met. So you keep looping and you are manipulating the value of some of the things you're getting from the loop. This is do while, okay? Do while meaning that I want to keep checking a particular list. I want to keep checking a particular list, a particular set, until I have reached the 10th element of the set. This is do while. There's also while, but everything is just the same thing, okay? Everything is just the same thing. For instance, if you want to do the while, you can just say while count, okay? While count is less than 11. It's still the same thing, right? It's still the same thing. You just keep counting until count is less than 11. So if you run this, it's going to count 1 to 10. And it's still the same thing as the do while. It's going to be the same thing as the do while. It's just different way of looping. It's a control statement. You will see how this stuff will come into play once you start coding. Okay, you've seen the difference between the while loop and the do while. You've seen the for, you've seen the if statement, you've seen the switch. All these are very important. You now need to ask yourself, which of this expression do I want to use? You need to ask yourself, because every of these control statements has a use case. I want to make sure that there is the value in a particular field. I will check if this field is not empty. I want to make sure that I look through all conditions, and if the condition does not exist, I want to assign another variable or another value to a variable. Use the else. Okay, I'm going to take a pause here to find out how you guys are feeling and if you guys have any questions based on what I've just explained so far. Okay, so I'll call you according to how your hands are being raised up. If you have a question, please raise your hand so I can call you. Thanks. Olakile, unmute yourself and speak, please.
Yeah, good evening. I just wanted to ask, when you declare, like you declare the Boolean outside the block, just the one you declare inside the block, does it take precedence over the one outside?
So if you declare a Boolean outside of the block, let's say, because this is execute anonymous window, so it depends on what you're calling a block, right? But if you declare a Boolean here, for instance, it's paid equals true, okay? And you declare another Boolean here, is paid equals false. If you are using is paid within this block, okay? If you're using is paid within this block, is paid will be false. However, if your code is not coming to this block at all, is paid will be true. Okay, so there's nothing like which one takes precedence or so. It's about where are you in the code. Where you are in the code will determine the value of is paid. For some people right now, they usually want to only change the value of something. Change the value of something only if it is standard. Only if it is standard. Do you get what I mean? Only if it is standard, that's when they want to change the value. They don't want to change the value for other places. Only when it is standard, they want to change the value. So they change or manipulate it inside this place. And this one will now go outside. If you don't declare it here, it's going to go outside. Okay? However, if, okay, good stuff. Well done. So just understand, yeah, no worries. Next question, is there any other person struggling with this that needs understanding? It's very important to know this. Things will get harder going forward because next week we're going to be going through queries. Okay, I need you to start working on real Salesforce stuff, and you'll see how this is being integrated with your Salesforce data. Okay? Or more, please.
Good evening, Babatope. Thank you for earlier on in the day as well. Thanks a lot. Okay, so my question is, where you have the for and the if together, there's a place you have the for and the if conditions together. Can you please scroll there?
Okay. Yeah, this one.
Yes. Could you please explain? I don't understand what is happening exactly.
Okay, so let's make it easier by taking this off. Okay, don't imagine this exists. Let's just keep it somewhere. Now we have this. Let's say you have a list of string. What is a list of string? This list of string, let me cut this. This list of string is giving you list of string, basic, standard, professional. That's it. That means you have a collection and your collection is basic, standard, professional. Okay? Now, you want to find out, because right now, you only declare this because you are writing the program. In reality, you don't know what is inside your list. You wouldn't see it. It's going to be like a query. It's going to be like an input from somewhere. So you have no idea that your list contains basic, standard, or professional. So for you to find out what the values of your list are, the values present in the list, you are going to loop. I'm using the for loop to iterate. I'm going to say, I have a list for item, okay? For plan, plan is basic, standard, professional inside that list. For plan, inside this list, find me what the plan is, which is system.debug to find the plan, right? That's it. The reason why I put string here is because plan is a string, is a list of string. So I'm saying for one plan inside this list, print that plan, then go back again. The second plan inside this list, print it, then go back again until you've looped through all the plans inside that list. Or you could call plan anything, doesn't matter, as long as it is anything you are printing here. Okay, so you are looping and you're finding the value of that element you don't know, because you have seen it like this, you know what is in there, but in real situation you wouldn't know. So you want to find out what is inside that list. Now you found out what is inside that list. What is the benefit of you finding it out? What is the benefit? Why are you doing it? You don't know what you're doing, right? You're just finding out what the plan is. But maybe they've asked you, if the plan is standard, make sure that the payment required is $250. If the plan is not standard, else if plan is professional, then make sure that the payment required equals 2,500. That's it. So you're looping through and you are changing the value of the payment required. Okay? You're changing the value of the payment required based on your loop. So what exactly is looping? Looping is going through all the items of that list, meaning that I want to go through item 0, item 1, item 2, and you want to keep going on and on to find out the value of that list. Then you want to manipulate based on the value if it matches the condition of the plan. Okay? That's what we're doing there.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
No worries, no worries. Is there any other question? Does this make sense? Does this make sense to you guys? Because this is programming. This is what we're going to be doing for the next 2 weeks. You're going to be getting data and you'll be manipulating that data. But right now, the data will not be coming like this. The data will be coming from your Salesforce org. The data will be all the records of opportunities, which is a collection. All the records present in your opportunity objects. If you want to collect that record, then you store it in a list. I want to collect all the account IDs in the account object. I will store it in a set. I want to map the ID to a particular account name. I will store it in a map. So you've seen how this stuff works. You've seen how the list, the sets, and the map. That is how they work. Why am I using map over list? Why am I using set over map? Why am I using it? Know what exactly you want to collect and what you're trying to manipulate. When we get to triggers, let me just show you an example. Triggers, Salesforce. You will see a basic instruction for trigger, and it's going to tell you new map, old map. What is this? It means that it is returning a map. It is returning a map. And you're going to see how you use that map. Look at this. Right now, you shouldn't be having trouble with understanding this. You might probably struggle a little bit, but at least you shouldn't struggle with this statement. If you see something like this, what is this saying? It's checking the size of this list. If it is greater than 0, then it is inserting it into a database. That's all. Can you see? This is what you're going to be doing. It's very easy. Once you know SOQL, you will understand everything that is going on here. You will understand it, okay? So I want to take a pause. I want to take a break because I don't want to teach you SOQL tonight. I want you to start afresh for SOQL, okay? Tomorrow is tutorial. Everything you've learned from Monday to Wednesday, you do tutorials tomorrow and Friday. Weekends is for your own practice. I don't want to have tutorials on weekends again. I want you to practice by yourself. Developer, it's about what you are doing, not what you are constantly overwhelming yourself with. It's what you're doing in your private time. It's what you are doing in your private time makes you a developer. So please, if you have struggled with everything I've taught you guys since Monday to today, make sure you attend tutorials on Thursday and Fridays, and weekends you will practice by yourself. There will be, I want to kind of like go through some past papers. So anytime we've covered an area, I'll just show you a sample question from the past papers so you can kind of like see how Salesforce will put everything together and try to trick you. But at the end of the day, it is still data types. It is still control flows, okay? So if you've struggled, please attend tutorials tomorrow and Friday. And on weekend, take your time to go through. Maybe you should just start with data types on weekends and just go through it and see that Babatope is not lying. Everything I'm showing you, this is where I'm getting it from. I'm not getting it from anywhere else, okay? So just go through it by yourself on weekends. But tomorrow, please attend tutorial so you can learn more. Next week, we're going to be doing SOQL. SOQL is the same thing as SQL, whereby you query, you use clause, and you get results. Then we start using those results later on, okay? Okay, is there any question? Sagal, please unmute yourself and speak.
Yeah, hi, Babatope. I have a question regarding date and time. So I was playing with the console, developer console, and I did do regular date and time. I mean, just date and time. And it was giving me, if I didn't give the hour for or the minutes, it gave me timestamp of 4. And then if I did put in the hours, like the hour and the time, the minutes and the seconds, then it always added a 4. So I wanted to know,
just give me an example. Date time.
Yeah.
Okay. So what did you do with date time?
Yeah, and then I did equal to, yeah, new instance. Oh, okay. I did not. Oh, okay. So I did not do that. I just did new date and time instance instead.
Yeah, you can do that. It doesn't matter. Let me just Google it to find out date time instance.
Yeah.
And you get you can write it anyhow you want. So just see an example of date time. This is an example of date time, right?
Yeah.
And I copy it in my developers console, which is this. So tell me what you did.
So I did the second line. I didn't have the first one. And then, yeah, and then I ran it. I mean, I did a console debug to show my date time.
Okay.
And then I executed it, and then it gave me the date, but with 4 hours.
Where is it 4 hours?
See how you have 5? For me, it gave me 400.
It's just maybe it has
conversion?
to do with the times. No, maybe the time zone.
Yeah.
The time zone. You understand? So the time zone is what is gonna give you like let me see. What time zone am I on? 22222.
GMT plus 5, right?
Where are you based? Where are you based?
Eastern. So for me, it's GMT
Eastern,
plus
right?
4. Yeah.
Yeah, it has to do with some time stuff. But then again, you can be very explicit if you want to. You can just try to get it like this, so you know exactly why it's giving you that, right? But normally you wouldn't have to add code time like this, okay? You never have to add code time like this because it's just for your test. What would normally happen is you declare the system dot get dates or something like that. Dates, get dates, system get dates apex. Yeah, you can just get dates dot, date dot today, date dot today, and you just get the dates, right? So you don't need to be add coding stuff unless you specifically know that you want these dates and stuff. That's when you add code it, okay? But you don't want to be add coding stuff. You want to get the current date, and you can also get time. I think so. I think you should be able to get dates. Let me see other stuff you can get. This is to convert it to a string. Then you can get more stuff. Let's see. Yeah, Salesforce is defining that date. But then again, you just see how to do that, right? You can just use the system date and start working from there. But if you want to be specific, then you have to declare all those fields. So you don't have to, you wouldn't have a very varying timestamp, okay? So I don't know how that time is coming up. Maybe it has to do with the time zone of your computer or something like that. Okay?
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So luckily you have something like this, right? My list dot set. When you're setting, what do you set? You set my list dot set. So essentially you're setting, right? So let's quickly do that on the computer. My list dot set. So basically you have a list of integer, I believe. Integer, right? My list, which is new list of integer. Okay, then once you set this, then you do a system.debug of my list, okay? List out of band. Okay, you haven't declared the list is out of band. That means you haven't declared the is this right? Where do you get the syntax from? Because this is you have to set one after the other, right? So if you don't set, you wouldn't get value in your list. Okay, so you have set integer from list of integer. I told you how to add to a list. That's how you add. But if you have a set, you can just check here to find out what's the set. If you're setting, you're placing the value into that position. Okay, you're placing that value into that position. That means, you know, lists are based on position, right? You have 0, you have 1, you have 2, you have 3. So if you want to set, that means you want to particularly set that position. So my list dot add 1, let's say add 2, add 12. Okay, you are now replacing the value of the first position, which is 0 to 1. Okay, so if you have a lot of numbers, let's say you have 1, you have 2, you have 3, you have 4. Okay, then you're now saying set the value of this one to 1, which doesn't make sense. So let's say set the value of 3 to 1. So it's not going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1. Okay, so let's first of all debug system.debug my list. Then debug my list again at the end. Okay, and see what happens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, meaning that you have set the value of position 3, 0, 1, 2, 3 to 1 instead of 4. The reason why initially it says out of bounds is because you have not put anything in position 3. So it doesn't know what position 3 is. But now you've declared it and you now change it to 1. Okay? That's the meaning of that. Okay? Yes. Okay, yes, Ola, to your comment. I think that's all from me. Please revise what we've done. It's very easy, it's very basic, but if you don't revise, you're going to get overwhelmed going forward. So try as much as possible to revise and try to learn outside of the class. That is what makes you a good developer. Okay, we are going to know a lot to get us an entry-level job. With this, people are making a lot of money. Some people don't even know how to write this code. All they know is how to build platform, the objects and everything within the Salesforce. They don't know how to use all this stuff. Now you know how to use it. You even know how to create a class. You know how to call a method. You are getting there. You just need to practice more and be dedicated for the next 4 weeks. By May 15, you should be good enough to start looking at JD of jobs. By end of May, you should be able to execute 1 project in Apex. By June, you should be working as a developer. You just have to be committed. If you're not committed, all this I'm saying, I'm just saying it. But if you're committed, you will see that you will get a job as a developer by June, guaranteed. Okay? So all the best, guys. Take care. I will see you next week. But please, if you struggle throughout Monday to Wednesday, try to attend the tutorials to learn more and ask more questions. Okay? All the best. Bye, everyone. Bye. Good night.